The lantern ceremony, also known as the Hiroshima Peace Day, is a very solemn occasion. We're here to remember the victims of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These people are survivors and are known as hibakusha. Their plea is to abolish nuclear weapons, and so that no one in the world will ever experience the suffering, the horrific suffering that they have had, that they would have their prayers and their pleas to abolish nuclear weapons. And we're here to respect that. We're here because we want to stand for the abolition of nuclear weapons. We're also here to move forward in world peace. We're here to stand together as many nations to make Canada and the rest of the world a better place for our children and for generations to come, so that when we gather together on these occasions, we can celebrate that we are now a nuclear-free world. And I don't know when that will come, but hopefully it will come soon. Thank you for coming today. This is the first time that our committee has actually had this occasion on August 9th, which is the bombing of Nagasaki. And this happened because we had a bit of conflict in reserving the part for August the 6th. But on August the 6th, the mayor of Hiroshima, Katsumi Matsui, had a declaration of peace that he does every year, this being the 60th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. The mayor's speech is a very profound and moving speech, and we have somebody here who is going to read that. That person is Nadia Kidwai. She is a wonderful spokesperson for the Islamic community and somebody who works with other communities, ethnic, cultural, to work together for world peace. So, Nadia, I'd like you to read the mayor's speech.
The Hiroshima Peace Declaration, August 6, 2013. We greet the morning of the 68th return of that day. At 8:15 a.m., August 6, 1945, a single atomic bomb erased an entire family. The baby boy was safely born. Just as the family was celebrating, the atomic bomb exploded. Showing no mercy, it took all that joy and hope along with a new life. A little boy managed somehow to survive, but the atomic bomb took his entire family. The A-bomb orphan lived through hardship, isolation, and illness, but was never able to have a family of his own. Today, he is a lonely, old hibakusha. I have never once been glad I survived, he says, looking back. After all these years of terrible suffering, the deep hurt remains. A woman who experienced the bombing at the age of 8 months suffered discrimination and prejudice. She did manage to marry, but a month later, her mother-in-law, who had been so kind at first, learned about her A-bomb survivor's handbook. "You're a hibakusha," she said. "We don't need a bombed bride. Get out now." And with that, I was divorced. At times, the fear of radiation elicited ugliness and cruelty. Groundless rumors caused many survivors to suffer in marriage, employment, childbirth, at every stage of life. Indiscriminately stealing the lives of innocent people, permanently altering the lives of survivors, and stalking their minds and bodies to the end of their days. The atomic bomb is the ultimate inhumane weapon and an absolute evil. The hibakusha, who know the hell of an atomic bombing, have continuously fought that evil. Under harsh, painful circumstances, the hibakusha have struggled with anger, hatred, grief, and other agonizing emotions. Suffering with after effects, Over and over they cried, "I want to be healthy. Can't I just lead a normal life?" But precisely because they have suffered such tragedy themselves, they came to believe that no one else should ever have to experience this cruelty. A man who was just 14 at the time of the bombing pleads, if the people of the world could just share love for the earth and love for all people, an end to war would be more than a dream. Even as their average age surpasses 78, the Hibakusha continue to communicate their longing for peace. They still hope the people of the world will come to share that longing and choose the right path. In response to this desire of the many Hibakusha who have transcended such terrible pain and sorrow, the rest of us must become the force that drives to struggle to abolish nuclear weapons. To that end, the city of Hiroshima and more than 5,700 cities that comprise Mayors for Peace, in collaboration with the UN and like-minded NGOs, seek to abolish nuclear weapons by 2020 and throw our full weight behind the early achievement of a nuclear weapons convention. Policymakers of the world, how long will you remain imprisoned by distrust and anonymity? Do you honestly believe you can continue to maintain national security by rattling your sabers? Please come to Hiroshima. Encounter the spirit of the Hibakusha. Look squarely at the future of the human family without being trapped in the past, and make the decision to shift to a system of security based on trust and dialogue. Hiroshima is a place that embodies the grand pacifism of the Japanese Constitution. At the same time, it points to the path the human family must walk. Moreover, for the peace and stability of our region, all countries involved must do more to achieve a nuclear weapon-free North Korea and a Northeast Asian nuclear weapon-free zone. Today, a growing group of countries is focusing on the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons and calling for abolition. President Obama has demonstrated his commitment to nuclear disarmament by inviting Russia to start negotiating further reductions. In this context, even if the nuclear power agreement the Japanese government is negotiating with India promotes the economic relationship, it is likely to hinder nuclear weapons abolition. Hiroshima calls on the Japanese government to strengthen ties with the governments pursuing abolition. At the ministerial meeting of the Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Initiative next spring in Hiroshima, we hope Japan will lead the way towards a stronger NPT regime. And as the Hibakusha in Japan and overseas advance in age, we reiterate our demand for improved measures appropriate to their needs. As well, we demand measures for those exposed to the black rain and expansion of the black rain areas. This summer, Eastern Japan is still suffering the aftermath of the great earthquake and the nuclear accident. The desperate struggle to recover hometowns continues. The people of Hiroshima know well the ordeal of recovery. We extend our hearts to those affected and will continue to offer our support. We urge the national government to rapidly develop and implement a responsible energy policy that places top priority in safety and the livelihoods of the people. Recalling once again the trials of our predecessors through these 68 years, we offer heartfelt consolation to the souls of the atomic bomb victims by pledging to do everything in our power to eliminate the absolute evil of nuclear weapons and achieve a peaceful world. Kazumi Matsui, Mayor, the city of Hiroshima.
Thank you, Nadia. I think when we hear the words of the mayor of Hiroshima, we have so many thoughts and ideas how we can work towards a more peaceful world. And I hope that, I know all of you here are involved in so many different ways to make this world a better place. So thank you for all your efforts as well. One of the things we try to do when we have these kinds of events is we try to involve and invite various levels of government And sometimes they send representatives and sometimes they send letters. So here's a letter from Mayor Sam Cates. On behalf of my esteemed colleagues on City Council and the citizens of Winnipeg, I would like to recognize everyone participating in this year's Lanterns for Peace event. This year marks the 68th anniversary of the devastating nuclear bombings that took place in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The resounding effects of this tragedy and the loss of human life continue to serve both as a reminder and warning of the deadly consequences of choosing to use nuclear weapons. History demands of us that we acknowledge and learn from the wrongdoings of the past to ensure we choose a different course to follow for our future. This anniversary impacts the world we live in today, which is why it is incredibly important to take the time to reflect on these events and honor those whose lives were lost. Our humanity is what connects and unites us. For healing to continue, we must work together for the purposes of achieving a common goal. In this case, striving and advocating for peace has the potential to make certain that future generations have a quality of life we all deserve. I want to take this opportunity to commend Project Peacemakers for once again organizing this commemorative event. Your efforts underscore how compassionate and caring communities across the world truly are. On behalf of the citizens of Winnipeg and my colleagues on City Council, we applaud your spirit, dedication, and perseverance in remembering the tragedies of our past and pursuing peace for our future. Warm regards, Sam Cates, Mayor of Winnipeg. Our next speaker is our guest speaker from the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. His name is Dr. Clint Curl, and he is the head of stakeholder relations. And we invited Dr. Curl to speak to us about some of the ways that the Museum of Human Rights is doing some planning around the area of peace, human rights, social justice, all those issues that all of us are so passionate about and care about a lot. So, Dr. Curl.
We're here today to think about a profound tragedy, the use of nuclear weapons against Japanese civilians during the Second World War. So many thousands of people died instantly, and so many thousands more died in the weeks and years after from strange ailments that we later realized was radiation poisoning. And though it's 68 years ago, when we think back on those events and hear the testimonies and the stories, it causes us to wonder about the violence that we humans can inflict on one another. It's difficult to comprehend, and it's hard to know what to say in the face of that inhumanity. I guess from my own personal feeling, I think there are maybe two positive responses that we can bring to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. First, I think we can show respect to the victims. We can take efforts to ensure that they're not forgotten. We can acknowledge their deep suffering. We can affirm that the lives they led were no less valuable than the lives we lead today, that their lives meant something. And even though they're gone, they are worth remembering. And in our memories, we can clothe their lives with dignity. The second positive response I think we can have 68 years on to the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is to ask what we can learn from these events. And this is tricky business, trying to wring meaning out of such profound violence. But I think it's important that we do that. Because only when we do that can we, push in the right ways to create conditions for genuine peace between peoples today. As Terumi said, I have the privilege of working for that big museum they're building over at the Forks, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And when I took the job there 3 years ago, I was inspired by this idea that this museum is going to be able to do human rights education. It's going to tackle that very difficult task of trying to draw meaning out of violence, meaning out of violation, so that we can maybe work together to create a better world. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our museum, and then conclude. The mandate of our museum is quite dramatic. It's to explore the subject of human rights with special but not exclusive reference to Canada in order to enhance understanding of human rights, to promote respect for others, and to encourage reflection and dialogue. Human rights are really forward-looking, aren't they? They're all about the future that we want to build, the future we want to bequeath to our children. And that being said, human rights are also backward-looking. They ask us to look back at the past and face our own history with honesty. Those who forget the past are destined to repeat it, so it's important to learn from what's happened to deal with it properly today. And the museum's doing both of those things. It's looking at the future and it's looking at the past. It's designed as an upward journey which passes through 11 thematic galleries on the way to the Tower of Hope at the top. The journey begins with an introductory gallery that looks at the sources of human rights. Where do we get these ideas that humans have dignity? Sources that come from all over the world, from different religions, from different philosophies. We then have a gallery that looks at indigenous conceptions of human rights and the way that the indigenous peoples in Canada understand human rights, human responsibilities, and our relationship to the earth. We then have a suite of galleries that looks at the Canadian scene, Canadian history, and Canadian present from a human rights perspective. We then go and look at the world. We have 3 galleries that look at the international or the global scene on human rights and look at human rights struggles historically and in present day around the world. And finally, the last gallery is called the Take Action Gallery, where we invite visitors to do something, to take action. When the human rights of everyone are respected, this makes a really strong foundation for a meaningful peace. And when we're talking about wars and international affairs and the relations between nation states, sometimes I feel that human rights promotion at that level is above my head, maybe above most of our heads. But I think that creating a genuine culture of human rights begins actually with small things. Things like we're doing this evening. And I'd like to close with a quotation from one of my own heroes, Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt was the wife of Franklin Roosevelt, the President of the United States, but she was also the first chair of the Human Rights Commission at the United Nations, and she really oversaw the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. When that declaration was drafted, she was asked by reporters what she thought about human rights, and here's what she said, and this is one of the quotations that really nourishes my own commitment and passion for human rights, so I'll share it with you. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Well, where, after all, do human rights begin? Well, they begin in small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhoods we live in, the schools or the colleges we attend, the factories, the farms, the offices where we work. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity, and equality without any discrimination at all. Unless human rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world." And I think that's what we're doing here this evening. In small ways, close to home, we're recognizing the human dignity of the victims of the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And in doing that, we're recognizing the human dignity of everyone everywhere. Well, this is where human rights and world peace begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Curl. I want to thank also other people who have really contributed to this event, and that is Shane Nustuk. He's going to be playing music while we launch our lanterns, and Brian Cox, who always comes to join us and teach us about origami. Thank you, Brian and Shane and Dr. Curl. I want to give you a bit of history about the lantern ceremony so that when we launch our lanterns that we've all made, we will have some thoughts and ideas about what this ceremony actually means. The lantern ceremony is actually a ceremony in the Buddhist faith, and every year there is a ritual in this in the faith that says once a year the spirits of your loved ones come back and join you in celebrating their lives with you. And it's a celebratory time, and it's a time of joy and love and caring and respect for one another. This ceremony that we do is one where we think about all the people who have died in war, people who have been innocent victims of atomic bombs, and some of the things that we think about war and peace and nuclear disarmament. And we put those messages and those drawings on our lanterns and we launch them. And when we launch them, we think about sending those spirits of our loved ones back to where they came from. And we want to make it a safe journey, so we light a candle so that they go back to the spirit world in a safe way. And in the Buddhist faith, that time is known as an Obon ceremony. We're here to contribute to world peace. We're here to remember the Hibakusha, and we're here to stand together as many nations, standing together for global peace and standing together for the abolition of nuclear weapons. And we want to have, as many people have said, we want a greater future for our children.